Walk Beyond 2040, and welcome to a very special edition of the Progressive Rock and Metal Album Review Series. And today I'm going to be taking a look at the amazing and incredible catalogue from one of the finest and most underrated bands ever in the progressive rock genre. And this is a band that, in many ways, really helped kick off the second wave of the progressive rock genre, and they were instrumental in helping to bring a lot of interest back into the progressive genre at a time when that sort of music wasn't flourishing as well as it should have done. And I have always looked at this band as one of the true rays of light that really shines brightly during the dark days of the mid 1990s. And this band were one of the cornerstones for the Magna Carta label. And during their existence, they put out some amazing music. And this band really carries the spirits of iconic bands such as Rush, Genesis, Yes, and ELP. And what this band did was they took all of those influences from those iconic bands, apply it to their music, but they were able to come up with their own original sound that was recognizable, and over the course of time developed their own unique voice and were able to stand out as one of the true premier bands of the progressive genre. And I've been a huge fan of this band for a long time, and this is a band that I've been wanting to talk about on this series for quite a while now. And I'm really looking forward to discussing this band's incredible catalogue of albums. And this band, as great as they were, and trust me when I tell you, these guys were amazing. Unfortunately, this band was laced with a lot of tragedy, as both co founders of this band are sadly no longer with us, but they leave behind an incredible body of work and a legacy that they quietly carved out for themselves as one of the top bands of the progressive rock genre. And the band that I am talking about needs no introduction whatsoever. I'm talking about, of course, the one and only American progressive metal band Magellan. So I first became aware of Magellan back in the mid 2000s. I heard an album of theirs that featured the super talented multi instrumentalist Robert Berry. And this band, alongside Robert Berry, absolutely blew my mind. They were modern, but they still retained a lot of the iconic hallmarks that you would come to expect and know from a progressive rock band slash metal band. And the music was very ferocious, very strong, very powerful. The vocals were quite high, but very quirky at the same time. And I didn't really know much about this band. Obviously, I know who Robert Berry is because he's played with Free, Hush, and Alliance, to name a few. And he also was one of the cornerstones for the Magna Carta label. So having him with Magellan really sealed the deal because I have always looked at Robert Berry as one of those special musicians that if you had him on your album, you know it's going to sound good. And when I started getting into more of Magellan's music, I was quite amazed with some of the special guests they had featured. They had guys like Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull, the great Tony Levin from King Crimson. They had all these different musicians who, are quite big names in their own rights. And they're guesting with Magellan. So I thought Magellan were an amazing band. And as I said, during their existence, they made some excellent music. And they were one of those bands that they weren't trying to copy what had been done already. They were trying to do more of their own thing, and they were trying to like more or less update and bring new life into the progressive genre. And for the most part, I would say they were very successful in doing that. So Magellan was formed in 1985 by brothers Wayne and Trent Gardner. And Magellan is primarily a duo collaborative project between the two brothers. Trent Gardner was the lead singer and played keyboards and trombone, and his brother Wayne Gardner played guitars, bass, keyboards, and backing vocals. So throughout most of their career as a band, they were primarily a duo, and they would often feature a number of guest musicians and collaborators to sit in with them. And when you hear Magellan, you know straight away it's them, as their sound is very similar to ELP, Yes, and Genesis and Rush, but they're not copycats. They are very much their own original band with their own identity and their own unique sound. And two incredibly talented brothers and unbelievable composers and both great musicians. And as I said earlier, this band has been laced with so much tragedy, as for those who know that both Gardner brothers are sadly no longer with us. Trent Gardner died in 2014, and Wayne Gardner committed suicide in 2014. So, to lose both brothers, at such a young age, they left us both way too early, and they still had so much to give. And it's a shame, really, but they leave behind a brilliant legacy and an unbelievable body of work. And, you know, Magellan were one of those bands that definitely deserved a lot more exposure. As I said, they weren't really that well known. But as I said, they did develop a loyal following. So the fans know who these guys were. I obviously know who these guys are. So that's what matters most, that the memory and their spirit lives on through the music. But Magellan were an unbelievable band, and both brothers were super talented multi instrumentalists. And as I said earlier, they made some incredible music during their existence. So, for today's special edition, I'm going to be discussing Magellan's incredible catalogue of albums, which is a total of 7 studio recordings. And as always, I'm going to be talking about each album individually, and I'll be choosing which one I think is the best one. Not an easy challenge. All 7 of these albums are excellent, well produced, and very enjoyable. No bad albums whatsoever. There are a couple that I like, maybe just a little bit more than others, but Magellan's catalogue is one of those things, it gets better as it goes along, but there are no bad albums at all. But I think with Magellan, as you get more and more into their music, you see that it does eventually get better. And, the playing, the vocals, the musicianship, everything about it is just top notch quality music. And, I just got finished listening to this band's entire catalogue of albums, and I was super impressed because I had only heard one Magellan album, which was ironically enough their last one but they did. So I hadn't really had a chance to listen to Magellan's stuff all the way through, but now that I have, I'm very much impressed with what they put out. And as I said, they made some incredible music. And this catalogue is incredibly strong, and any of these albums could be a number one or an all time favourite. And as I said already, there are no bad albums in Magellan's catalogue. So, we are going to start with the first album, and this one came out in 1991, and this one is called House of Restoration. So, this is Magellan's first album for the Magna Carta label, and I can tell you something now, this was really good. This was a very good album, very enjoyable, and there's something about the production of albums from the 90s, especially from where the progressive rock genre is concerned. It sounds really good. I mean, it doesn't sound overproduced. It's got a nice balance, it's got a great sound, and I just think it sounds incredible. Both brothers are on top form, and there isn't necessarily a drummer. A lot of the drumming that you hear is programmed, but they do it in such a way that you would almost mistaken the air quote drumming to be from an actual drummer. You think, oh, that drumming's really good. I wonder who that guy is. But they do have a lot of guest drummers on their albums, and a lot of it is programmed, but they do actually have an actual drummer playing with them. But I was very impressed with the debut album, Hour of Restoration, and there is some incredible music. So all of the compositions for this album are written and composed by Trent Gardner. And top to bottom, it's a really strong album. There's some really good material. And, the vocals, the playing, the musicianship, the compositions, everything about this album is just on point. It's just a really good sounding album. So we've got the first track, which is named after the label that they're on, Magna Carta, which is 14 minutes long. It's absolutely excellent. It's a really good kick-off track. Then we've got The Winner, which is brilliant. Friends of America is great. Union Jack is great, which is like the second longest track on this album. It's like 9 minutes long. Really good stuff. Another Burning is great. Just One Bridge is brilliant. Breaking These Circles is great. And the short closer, Turning Point. But top to bottom, there's some really good music here. Very enjoyable as well. And Magellan is credited on this album is we've got Trent Gardner on lead vocals and keyboards, Wayne Gardner on guitars and backing vocals, Hal Stringfellow Embry on bass and backing vocals, and all of the drums and percussion are performed by Magellan. So some really good stuff here. Very enjoyable album. And the standout tracks for me are Magna Carta, Union Jack, Friends of America, and Breaking These Circles. But it's a really good album, very enjoyable, and just a very good first impression for the brothers, as far as I'm concerned. Just a really good, strong debut album. So there you have it. Hour of Restoration. Excellent debut album from Magellan. Excellent stuff. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 1993, and this one is called Impending Ascension. So, Impending Ascension is the second album from Magellan, and it's kind of like a continuation of their debut album, Hour of Restoration, but it's equally as good as their debut album. Lots of great hooks, lots of memorable songs, great compositions. Love the vocals. The playing is just top notch. Everything about this album, from top to bottom, is incredibly strong. And we've got Doane Perry on drums, who plays on most of this album. And this album just sounds fantastic. It's really, really good. And we've got a few more epic lengthy songs on this album compared to the first album, but it's really good stuff here. Very, very enjoyable. So we got the first track, Estadium Nacional, which is over 11 minutes long. Absolutely enjoyable. Great opener. Waterfront Weirdos is brilliant, which is also 11 minutes long. And then we got Songsmith is great. Virtual Reality is brilliant. No Time for Words is good. And we've got another epic length track, Storms and Mutiny, which is almost 12 minutes long. Absolutely amazing. And then we've got another short closer on this album, Under the Wire, which is like 1 minute and 41 seconds. But top to bottom, very strong album, very enjoyable, and just all around great music. It's just absolutely amazing stuff. And some of it does have that ELP sort of style of sound to it, but that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, and it's really good stuff here. And the standout tracks for me are Estadium Naconio, Waterfront Weirdos, Virtual Reality, Storms, and Mutiny. Every song on here, brilliant. Those tracks really stood out to me, but just a very enjoyable album. So there you have it. Impending Ascension, another great album from Magellan. Excellent album. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 1997, and this one is called Test of Wills. I really like this album a lot. It was hard hitting, it was ferocious, it was aggressive, just above all else, absolutely amazing. Just a fantastic album that really packed a hell of a punch. Just unbelievable music. And at times it did sound a little bit like ELP, but as I said earlier, that's not a bad thing. You can hear lots of different influences of various bands in the music. You can hear a little bit of Yes, you can hear a little bit of ELP, you can hear a lot of Rush, early Genesis. It's all here, but it's still fresh and very accessible. Just absolutely amazing stuff. So, once again, we've got both Gardner brothers and we've got Brad Kaiser on drums, who plays on the whole album. So, Magellan has now more or less become like, a band. It's a three-piece band, and it's just absolutely amazing. The band sound incredible, and all of the music and lyrics are written and composed by Trent Gardner. And like I said, just a really good album. So we've got Game Face, which is excellent. A Social, Marginal is brilliant. Walk Fast, Look Worried is great. The title track, Test of Wills, is brilliant. Bully Pulpits Part 1 is great. Jacko is brilliant. Crucible is great. Preaching the Converted and Critics Carnival is absolutely amazing. Holy cow. Really love this album a lot. I love the first two albums, but this one, whew, dynamite stuff. Absolutely dynamite. My goodness. Absolutely brilliant. And the standout tracks for me are Game Face, Social Marginal, Test of Wills. Absolutely love that track. Jacko, Crucible, and Preaching the Converted. But top to bottom, Test of Wills is a fantastic album and one of Magellan's best albums. And I really enjoyed this one a lot. Just I thought this was a really good album. So there you have it. Test of Wills, brilliant album, and one of Magellan's best from their catalogue. Absolutely love it. Fantastic stuff. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2002, and this one is called 100 Year Flood. Another fantastic album from Magellan, and there's a little bit of a difference with this album compared to the first three. So we've got 15 tracks on this album, but tracks 1 to 13 is made up of one big suite, and it's over 34 minutes long. And the second track, which is like track 14, which is like the shortest track, it's like 5 minutes and 53 seconds. And then the third track, which is listed as track 15, is like almost 11 minutes long, like clocking in at 10 minutes and 52 seconds. But fantastic album, really enjoyable, and I really got into this album a lot. It was so good that it just flew by me. I just thought, oh, is that it? Because it was so good, and you don't really notice how long some of these tracks are because they're so good. They're very well paced, and I love it. I just absolutely love it. So we've got both Gardner brothers, and we got Joe Franco on drums, and we've got special guest appearances. We've got Ian Anderson on flute from Jethro Tull, the great Tony Levin on bass from King Crimson, Robert Berry on guitars and bass, and we've also got George Bellis also on guitar as well. But all-star lineup, everybody sounds fantastic, just really enjoyable stuff. And the standout track for me, I would say, is The Great Good Nights, which is excellent. It's like 34 minutes long, but it's made up of 13 parts. Absolutely love that. And Brothers Keeper, which is the closer, which is like 10 minutes and 52 seconds. Both amazing tracks. Family Jewels is great as well, but those two really stood out to me because, as I said, The Great Good Nights, although it's 13 tracks, they just all carry on from each other. But wow, just amazing stuff here. So there you have it. 100 Year Flood, excellent album, one of my favorites from Magellan. Tremendous stuff, and the highlights for me is Robert Berry and Tony Levin all playing together, and Ian Anderson as well. Just all the guests showcased and doing their thing. They really add a lot of color to the brothers' music. Just absolutely brilliant stuff. So there you have it. 100 Year Flood, one of my favourites from Magellan. Very good album. A very enjoyable album from Magellan. Absolutely love it. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2003, and this one is called Impossible Figures. Another fantastic album from Magellan, and very enjoyable. So now that Magellan have gone from Magna Carta, they are now on Inside Out Music. So the production is a little bit more modern, a little bit more up to date, a little bit more sheen than the first four albums when they were released on Magna Carta. But the results are still the same. The music is excellent, the playing is great, the compositions are memorable. Everything about this album is just on point, just a fantastic album. So, of course, we got the Gardner brothers playing everything, and we've also got Stephen Imbler on piano, Jason Ganny on drums. We've got the amazing Robert Berry playing drums, and of course Jeff Curtis was instrumental in putting together all of the arrangements. But very good album, very enjoyable, hard hitting, as prog as they come, just fantastic stuff. So we've got Gorilla with a pitchfork, which is more or less like an intro. Then we got Killer of Hope, which is over 10 minutes long, just absolutely amazing. Bark 16 is great. Late for Church is brilliant. Confessor's Overture is great. Hymn for a Hethan is great. A World Groove is brilliant. Counterpoints is great. Feel the Cross is excellent. And we've got a bonus track, which is called Hallucination. But very good. Very enjoyable album. Less epic songs than the earlier albums, but still got memorable stuff on here. But as I said, a lot of the songs are a little bit more shorter compared to like the early albums, but still plenty of music to get your teeth into. But I really like this one a lot. I thought this was a very good, strong album. And the standout tracks for me are Killer of Hope, Hymn for a Heaven, A World Groove, Counterpoints, Feel the Cross, and the bonus track Hallucination. But really good album, very enjoyable. And I love some of the album covers for Magellan. You know, they're quite unusual, quite dark, and quite ominous, but at the same time, they're quite decent covers, in my opinion. So there you have it. Impossible Figures. Excellent album and a great first impression on Inside Out music. Just absolutely amazing stuff, courtesy of Magellan. Great album from the brothers. Love it. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2005, and this one is called Symphony for a Misanthrope. So another fantastic album from Magellan. So still got a few shortish tracks, but we've got a couple of long nut tracks as well. So they're starting to bring some of the epic tracks back into their music once again. And I really enjoyed this one a lot. You know, as I said at the beginning, with Magellan's catalogue, there are no bad albums in this catalogue, but it gets better as it goes along. But this album was very exceptional and very enjoyable. You know, Robert Berry is on this album as well. You know, he's playing everything, even though he's featured on one track, but he has such a presence on this album. And everybody else is on top form. You know, both Wayne and Trent Gardner are just absolutely killing it. And it's just a really fantastic album. So we've got the first track, which is Symphonette, which is great. Why Water Weeds, which is like 8 minutes long. That's brilliant. And then we've got Wisdom, which is excellent. And then we got the Cranium Reef Suite, which is 18 minutes long and it's made up of 3 parts. We've got part one, Youthful Enthusiasm, part two, Psych 101, and part three, Primal Defense, which is excellent. The entire piece, the whole suite, is just tremendous. Probably my favorite track of the entire album. Then we got Pianissimo Intermission, which is more or less like a piano instrumental interlude. Very enjoyable. And then we got Doctor Concoctor, which is really good as well. And then we got Every Bullet Needs Blood, which is excellent, which is a really great closer. But top to bottom, this is a very good album, very enjoyable, and great playing from both Trent and Wayne Gardner. Everybody's just killing it. It's just a really good, strong album from top to bottom. And Trent Gardner's vocals, you know, all of these albums, he is just on top vocal form, and he's an amazing keyboard player. And Wayne Gardner, he's just great on guitars and bass. I would say he's probably a better guitarist than he is a bass player, but he still sounds great on both. But I think he's a much more stronger guitarist than he is a bass player. But holy cow, unbelievable album. So the standouts for me are Why Water Weeds, Cranium Reef Suite, Doctor Concoctor, and Every Bullet Needs Blood. Great album from Magellan, another favourite of mine. Absolutely amazing stuff. So there you have it. Symphony for a Misanthrope. Absolutely great stuff. Love it. So we move on to the next album, and this one came out in 2007, and this one is called Innocent God. So, Innocent God is the final studio album from Magellan, and it's really good. This was the one that really got me into Magellan's music. Robert Berry's got a big presence on this album. It's a lot more African driven. There's lots of African polyrhythms, lots of jungle drums and all sorts. It's a very technical and atmospheric album. They've still got a lot of prog elements, but it's a little bit different to some of the earlier stuff. But it's really good. It's a really good album with some outstanding tracks. So we got Invisible Bright Man is excellent. My Warrior is great. Innocent God, the title track is brilliant. Found is probably my favourite track of this album. It's just so dark and menacing, absolutely brilliant. Who to Believe is great. Sea of Details is excellent, and Slow Burn is great. Love this album. Really got me into the band. Just amazing stuff, and it's very technical. It's very dark. It's got lots of weird things going on, and judging by the album cover, it's not really what you call easy listening, but it's really good. I thought this was a very good, strong album, and look at that. That's just frightening, but really like this album a lot. Just an amazing collection of songs, courtesy of Wayne and Trent Gardner. Absolutely love it. And the standout tracks for me are Invisible Bright Man, Innocent God, Found, Sea of Details, and Slow Burn. But very strong album. Little did we know this would be the last album from Magellan, but they really go out on a high note, and both Wayne and Trent Gardner are just on top form as always. But this is probably their strongest performance out of all of these albums. Very good stuff here. So there you have it. Innocent God, the last and final album from Magellan. But what a way to go out. Just unbelievable stuff. Would we have liked to have seen more? Absolutely, of course. But what a way to go out on. Just go out with a huge bang with a very strong album. Doesn't get any better than that. So there you have it. Innocent God, fantastic final album from Magellan. Love it. So, which Magellan album do I think is the best one? Well, like I said at the beginning, there are no bad albums in Magellan's catalogue. I thought every album was very good. There are some that I liked a little bit more than others, but that doesn't mean that I don't like the others that much less. I love all of these albums equally. They're all different, but they all sound equally great. But if I had to choose one Magellan album that I think was the best one, that really got my attention the most, it would be Test of Wills. I thought Test of Wills was a fantastic album. Really had that ELP sort of style of music and playing. Just very strong album, lots of great songs, and just very hard hitting. I love Innocent God. That was the one that got me into the band, but I thought this one musically was definitely the best album of Magellan's entire catalogue. I just thought this one just had a bit more grit to it, and I love it. I just thought it was a really good album. So there you have it. Test of Wills, the album that I consider to be Magellan's best one. Absolutely love it. Fantastic stuff. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite Magellan album? Is it Hour of Restoration, Impending Ascension, Test of Wills, 100 Year Flood, Impossible Figures, Sympathy for a Misanthrope, or Innocent God? There's no right or wrong answer. We all have our favourite albums. You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Progressive Rock and Metal album review series. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.